Hey everybody, this is Andrea Jenson from the Cash Flow CFO, and you're listening to the Cash Flow CFO Podcast, the show that explores the financial side of running a business for people who want to maximize profitability and scale with confidence. If you want to make smart financial decisions based on data and put more of your hard-earned profits into your pocket, this is the podcast for you. This episode of the Cash Flow CFO podcast is brought to you by the Cash Flow CFO. Did you know that on average, business owners have up to 84% of their personal net worth tied up in their business? Our virtual CPAs and CFOs, as well as accounting and bookkeeping experts, empower business owners just like you to make big leaps that help them maximize profitability and scale with confidence. Visit thecashflowcfo.com for more information, and thank you for listening. Hey everyone, it's Andrea, and our guest for today is Amy Evans. Amy has more than 20 years of experience in the insurance industry, simplifying employee benefits for employers and their employees. In October of 2021, her insurance agency was acquired by Acrisure. As an associate vice president, Amy works with employers to help them navigate the complex world of employee benefits, business insurance, and risk management. Amy's passionate about empowering professional women to network more effectively. In 2019, she started the Align Women podcast, which features female entrepreneurs, leaders, and other professionals who have demonstrated agency and innovation in their personal and professional lives. Amy is a frequent speaker, writer, podcast guest, and social media participant, and you can find her engaging regularly on a variety of topics, including health insurance issues, entrepreneurship, social media strategies, women's empowerment, and networking with intention. I love that. Welcome to the show, Amy.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, Andrea.
Oh, you are so welcome. I'm so excited to talk to you because I feel like this topic, insurance, employer benefits, all the things, it's one topic that business owners have so many questions about, and it's constantly changing. So just when you think you understand all the things that have to do with the what you're supposed to do, how you're supposed to do it, and all those little pieces, then you have to relearn it or stay up to date on all the stuff. So I'm excited to chat with you about all of the latest and greatest and share some of your wisdom with our viewers and listeners.
Wonderful. Happy to be here.
How did you pick insurance? I'm just curious. How did you get started in this industry?
That's a great question. And I would say 99% of the people I know in the insurance industry all say the same thing, which is, I didn't really pick insurance. Insurance picked me. There are some people, and I work with one who is at heart, at his core, an insurance nerd, a complete financial lover of all things finance, and a lover of all things insurance. So he picked insurance. I am really a salesperson at heart. I am a natural salesperson. I've been in professional commission sales for about 25 years. And when I left one sales job and was looking for the next sales job, when I was finally really embracing the idea that was the thing that I was good at, an insurance recruiter reached out to me and offered me an opportunity that had all of the things I was looking for, and insurance wasn't on the list. It was commission sales, it was freedom, it was variety of clients, it was a really well-known brand, and it turned out to be an excellent opportunity. I stayed in that role for 10 years. And then transitioned to a different role still within the insurance industry. So most people I know don't seek out insurance as a career. It's not sexy. It is as one of my sales mentors described, a get rich slow scheme. So it takes a long time to build, and that can be really a deterrent for people who are just starting out and aren't going to make that desired six-figure income, for the first couple years in their career. And that can be super scary for people. And there really isn't a lot of education that is a career path for insurance sales. So if you want to become like an auditor and work on the underbelly of insurance, there are degrees for that. But insurance sales is not something you can easily train for or recruit for. So it's an odd business. It means there's a collection of really interesting and lovely personalities that come from all kinds of backgrounds, and really like the infrastructure, the structure that an insurance career creates, and that's what attracted me.
Yeah. Well, I can see why you've been so successful, because you're a natural connector and problem solver. And, that's kind of like, you get each new client you get, I'm sure you're looking at the whole Rubik's Cube and going, all right, what are all the components? What do we need to put in place here? And so that makes sense that you would be so.
I bet you do the same thing. I have found that one of the fun ways to engage with just about anybody at like a networking event is to figure out what the puzzle is that they solve for their clients. And I'm sure when you onboard a client, you're doing the same thing, and you're looking at how they run their finances and what they do with their money, and you're helping them to solve a puzzle in that arena, just like I'm helping my clients to solve a puzzle in the insurance arena.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's something that I love. And I think where I get to layer on the skill sets that I've acquired, throughout my career is, being able to speak accounting is a whole nother language. And I could, to me, a perfect evening, and I know this is going to sound super nerdy to everybody that's not an accountant, it's a glass of wine and somebody's financial statements, especially if they're like a publicly traded company and they're this thick, because you get the whole narrative, you get all of the things. And not very many people, number one, enjoy that, but number two, can pull that story out of looking at numbers. So anyhow.
Yep. I remember when I first became a broker, I was mentored by a really wonderful woman at the agency I was working at. And I envied her ability to take an insurance renewal for a client. And she would open it up, and in about 15 seconds, she would pull out like the whole story of where they were and what wasn't going right and what needed to be done and high claims and how this needed to be adjusted. And I was so envious of her ability to do that, because she had been in the industry so long. And I really enjoy now the ability to do that. And I have the same experience you do. I get a renewal, a contract renewal for a client. And every time I sit down, like right as I'm opening it, I'm like, oh, what's this gonna look like? And that feels super nerdy to me too. So while I say I'm not an insurance person, I might have snuck in there a little bit because I enjoy that process.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'd love to know a little bit. So our listeners, business owners, size wise, revenue wise, team wise, I'm sure it runs the gamut. But what are some of the things, let's just start off kind of a smaller company, and then we'll kind of talk a little bit as the employee count grows. But what are some of the things that, if you're just starting off, what are some of the insurance check the boxes, due diligence that you should have in place for your business?
So I'm going to talk about the employee benefit side more than the commercial insurance side. There's a big dividing line in the world of insurance between those two things. So employee benefits is really what an employer would provide to their employees, with some employer contribution depending on the benefits. So there is some cost to the employer to provide benefits, and sometimes the employees contribute as well. The majority of that conversation is around health insurance. So employer-sponsored group health insurance that the employees can choose to enroll in. And the people insurance, health, vision, disability, life insurance, that's all under the employee benefits, the life and health umbrella, which is where I play. There's also commercial insurance, and that is generally what I call stuff insurance. So on the one side, you're insuring your people, and that's the side I'm on. And then on the other side, you're insuring your stuff. And stuff can be physical stuff, or it can be sort of the concept of I'm protecting my business in case we get sued by employees, by customers. I'm protecting my things. If I have a warehouse, if I have inventory, that's all on the commercial insurance side. And while I don't play on that side, I know enough to be effective, and I have a wonderful team of people who know way more than me about that. And often when we're talking to a client about their risk management strategy, the commercial insurance side is really where our team spends a lot of time, because, and I say this, it's controversial amongst my insurance friends, employee benefits really isn't a risk management strategy. The employer isn't protecting themselves when they offer their employees health insurance. Now, you could say, well, they want to offer health insurance because they want to attract and retain good employees. And that is absolutely the reason that an employer would put an employee benefit strategy in place. But the real risk management piece comes on the commercial insurance side, where the employer has a potential loss. The loss could be stuff. The loss could be from fire or earthquake or tornado or flood or lawsuit. And that's really where the risk management part comes in, and where our commercial insurance team really gets under the hood of a business to understand, where is all your stuff? What are the risks that your stuff is exposed to? And which insurance pieces can we put in place to protect you? And typically for a business just starting out, that would be like general liability insurance. And often a risk management strategy is a build, kind of like you were talking about. You start out when you're just out the gate, considering, who am I selling to? Do I have a product? Is there a risk to that product? I talk to companies. I've had clients that have like skincare products. So then you have to think through, what if something happens in the manufacturing that doesn't go right? What if somebody has a reaction? If you've got employees, you've always got to think about like wage and hour issues and how to protect yourself against that. If you've got partners, depending on your business structure, there could be directors and officers insurance to protect if you're all partners in a business and one of them runs off with all the money. How do you protect your contracts and your ability to handle your debts? So all of that on the commercial side. And it's fun because, just like you were saying, kind of every client's different. Every client's different. Every client needs different levels of protection. And as they grow, those things can expand. Also on that side, on commercial insurance side, is workers' compensation insurance. So as soon as you've got employees, you've got to have workers' compensation insurance in place in order to protect them if they get injured while they're on the job. So we talk to our clients about that. On the benefit side, when an employer is considering putting employee benefits in place, the majority of the conversations around medical insurance. So it's highly unlikely that an employer would not offer medical and then offer other things. It is very common that an employer only offer medical, and then as they grow, add other things on, like dental or vision or life insurance. So most of my conversation with my clients is around medical insurance, and most of the spend on the employer part and the employee part is on medical insurance. So that's where we spend most of our time. So one of the things that I like employers who are just starting out to know is that you've got to have actual employees hired and on payroll, typically for about 30 days before you can go to an insurance company and ask them for a quote to put a group health insurance plan in place. So a lot of times I talk to brand new employers who are just starting out, haven't hired anybody yet, and they have the idea that they want to get the insurance contract in place so that as they're recruiting, they can tell new employees, hey, guess what? When you come on board, here's what we're going to offer you. But you actually can't do it that way. That's the wrong order for the insurance companies. And you need to have those employees hired before you can get a quote. So, good thing to keep in mind if someone is in the position, which is an enviable position, of starting off a business and being ready to offer employee benefits as soon as they get started. Employers are not required by any law to offer benefits until they get to 50 full-time employees, and that's part of the Affordable Care Act that was passed about 10 years ago. So 50 is the magic mark when it's a requirement, but a lot of smaller employers find that having benefits helps them to attract and retain good people.
Yeah, absolutely. It helps them to be competitive in the job market, and a lot of it depends too. One of the things that we've learned is that it depends on the some people will say, oh, it's really expensive to offer medical insurance, and other people will say, no, it's not expensive at all. And it really boils down to the demographics of your team, on what is affordable and what sometimes is a little bit more pricey,
Yeah.
right? Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. For sure. I say there's an art and a science to employee benefits. The science part is the math, right? Just like you deal with numbers. I mean, there's just straight numbers. Some things are true and some things are not, just depending on how the math works. But the art is really understanding both what the particular demographics are of a client are, and also what's available for that demographic. So I could take anybody's employee census and I could go out and run quotes for the most expensive PPO plan with the biggest network, with the richest benefits, with the lowest deductible. And I could shove that quote at anybody and they would have the reaction you were talking about, which is, oh my God, this is, $1,000 per month per person. This isn't even sustainable. But my job as a broker is to sit down with a business owner and say, tell me about your employees. What's the lowest wage that you're paying? Are these employees who prefer to get services in Spanish? Are these a bunch of young guys who think they're invincible and don't go to the doctor for anything, but definitely need some kind of catastrophic coverage in case there's a car accident or a snowboarding accident or a skateboarding accident? Or is this a group of women in their 30s and 40s and 50s who are creating families and need a higher level of hospital care? Or is this an older population that has a lot of prescriptions that they fill? And so we need to be really sensitive to the prescription coverage and whether or not there's a separate prescription deductible. And geographically, where are these people located? Are they close to Kaiser facilities so that Kaiser might be a good option? Or are they far away from Kaiser facilities so that doesn't make any sense for this group? And do we need HMOs plus PPOs? Do we have lower wage earners where an HMO might make sense, and then higher executive level people where PPO might make sense? All of that is the art of what I bring to understand what's unique about the client, what's unique about the geography, and what's available with the carriers. And our market in Southern California, because you're down in the San Diego area, I'm up in the Los Angeles area, our market is very unique compared to even Northern California, compared to the rest of the country for sure. So knowing how to navigate that is something that I've learned working with Southern California businesses for the last 20 years. And as you alluded to at the beginning, all of it changes every single year. So what's true right now for a client, if we were placing insurance for May 1st, is going to be 100% different next year. Carriers leave the market, medical groups leave carriers, new carriers come in, rates go crazy. It changes every single time I sit down to a renewal with a client. And so I need to be up to date all the time to be able to navigate my clients through at each renewal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's such an important piece right there, because, a lot of the work that we do as CFOs is helping to set pricing for business owners for their services or their products. And a lot of the pricing comes from, well, how do you deliver what it is? How much does it cost you to make it? Or how much does it cost you to deliver it? And we're backing, labor is a big piece of that. And so we're preparing these forecasts that have blended rates in them. And the blended rate is what you're using into that pricing um, computation to determine what am I setting my prices at. And for a lot of businesses who aren't factoring that component in and all the changes to how much it costs you to have that employee, what that's doing is it's creating, an opportunity, exposure risk, right, for your pricing to be set incorrectly. And that ultimately is going to eat right into your margins, your very bottom line of your profits, because it changes every year. And I mean, I don't know how many business owners we talk to that they say, "Oh, I've never looked at it, with all a fully loaded rate." And so it's kind of eye-opening when they do.
Start scaling with confidence today. The Cash Flow CFO is a full-service accounting and fractional CFO firm. So it goes without saying that our financial experts are phenomenal at number crunching. But more than that, they are expert communicators who will connect all those complicated financial dots in a way that just makes sense. We don't wait in the wings and check in every so often either. With our boutique approach, we position ourselves front and center, watching over every dollar that comes in and out of your business as if it was our own. So if your business is making money and you're ready to take it to the next level, but you're not sure you completely understand your numbers, and you're looking for that trusted guide to help you build a roadmap to reach your financial goals, it sounds like we would be a great fit. Visit thecashflowcfo.com and let's get started empowering you to build and scale your business the way you want to today.
And there's a couple of reasons that it changes every year. So that's why I love working with someone like you who really understands the nuances of that and helps a client to understand that, because you're right, it impacts what they should be charging, what their overall labor costs are. And California, you and I both know California makes it really hard for employers to do a lot of things. And on the insurance side, one of the hard things is under 100 employees in California, the rates are determined by each employee's age. So we refer to that as age banded. Over 100 employees, you get what we call community rating, which means whether you're 21 or 51, the cost to cover an employee for a month's worth of health insurance is exactly the same. But under 100 employees, it's age banded, which means there is no magic number to tell an employer, this is how much health insurance is going to cost you per month. It depends on your employee population, and PS, your employee population gets older every year. And so that means your rates go up just from the natural birthdays that occur. Your rates go up every year, plus the sort of medical trend or medical inflation that makes medical rates go up every year. And then you've got to factor in which plans you're offering and what the employer contribution is to those plans. And while the minimum contribution for most insurance carriers is 50% of the employee cost for the lowest plan that you offer, the lowest plan that you offer then has to be defined, and there's an employer choice in that. And then I have some recommendations there. So all of that's a very moving target. And then, if the rates go up because the employees got older next year and they go up by 8 to 10% because that's just the natural rate increases, then that's a lot to factor in to be sure that that client is still using the accurate numbers to get to the point that you're talking about, and factor in labor costs to determine what they're charging for their products or services.
Yeah, absolutely. I think business owners don't realize how many sneaky little changes in everything, right? We look at supply chain, we look at shipping costs, we look at storage costs, we look at acquiring a new employee, how much time and energy and dollars that ultimately cost to source and onboard and train and get them to where they're actually client facing and generating revenue. All of those costs, and insurance is a big one too, right? All of those costs, 1% here, 2% here, 3% there, that compounds to such a big number every year. And business owners that aren't doing the annual sitting down, pulling all the data, right, to update their budget and their forecast for the new year, they really, they're doing themselves a disservice, because you could be having great, generating great leads and closing sales, but if your dollar amount that you're charging isn't the right number, it's just such expended energy for not what you should be getting, for the business, your competitor down the road who is doing all of these things, and they're, generating X number of higher profits than you are. So,
Right.
so important.
For sure. And I think some employers who are already offering benefits, may not realize that there really are a lot of options. So while we talk about how much the rates are going up and the birthdays make the rates increase, just because you're with a certain carrier offering a certain plan and have a certain employer contribution defined, that doesn't mean that you're stuck there. So, I mean, if things were really bad, you can cancel your insurance contract at any time and move to a new carrier. People get the sense that they're kind of locked in for a 12-month period, and that's actually not true. The contract is a 12-month period, but there's no penalty for leaving it. So if you're in a really bad situation, you don't have to stay there. If your increase is unsustainable, if it's a 15 or 20% increase, you don't have to take that. There's a lot that a strategic broker can do. And typically I'll start with looking at where are you with your insurance carrier and your plans. We don't necessarily have to pull the plug on that. Are there other plans that are available that might be a better fit? Can we change your employer contribution? Maybe you're doing a flat dollar amount and it's actually better to move to a percentage. We can do the analysis of those numbers to show what the cost impact would be. And there's really a lot that can be done without kind of scrapping the whole thing, although scrapping the whole thing is always an option. And I think people who work with, I tend to call them lazy brokers, who just send the renewal and go, well, that is what it is this year. Good luck with that. Tell Andrea to increase all your prices by 5% to compensate. There's really a lot that can be done, but it takes a broker that wants to get into the nitty gritty of it in order to look at what those options are. And then it takes the employer actually putting a little thought to it for just a finite amount of time once a year. It might be a half hour, an hour-long strategy session, but really understanding, okay, I could make this adjustment here, but this would be that impact. We could leave this carrier, but that would be a lot of disruption for the employees. And a lot of times I sit down with my employers, and at the end of that conversation, they say, we really don't want to make any changes. We understand what the impact would be, and we're going to stay where we are. But at least they're informed, and at least they're making that decision with the right information, as opposed to just sort of like you were referring to, kind of accepting it and not really understanding why it is what it is. And I really pride myself on helping my employers understand how this all works so that they feel like they're making the best decision they can for their business.
Yeah, absolutely. And what keeps coming in my head is thinking about, like, asking the employees too, what's important to you in coverage, and what, like you listed a handful of things that I didn't even think about, like prescription coverage and, and different things like that. And so it's important to also, survey the team and understand what's important to them, and what would they like, have them prioritize, right? What all the different offerings, so that when you do come to this conversation with your insurance broker, you have data, right? So you're not just looking at price only, because at the end of the day, retaining an employee, a good employee, is so much more cost effective than them leaving because somebody else offers a little bit better insurance. I'm sure it'd have to be more than just that, but you run that risk as an employer, and that cost is so high to fill, an open position. So if you can find ways to, meet them with what they're looking for, what's going to keep them happy and motivated, and about longevity, I think it's just huge win-win.
For sure. And employee surveys can turn up interesting challenges that aren't necessarily related to the cost of insurance, but it could be the function of insurance. Maybe they have trouble getting a a doctor appointment, or they're having trouble with a claim, and sort of their attitude is, none of this stuff works. This is stupid. I'm not getting any value out of it. And with a good broker and a good broker team, good account managers, we can help with a lot of that stuff. So we try and take a lot of that frustrating work that an employer has trying to get in touch with an insurance company, or the employees have trying to get in touch with their insurance company. We try and help as much as we can, because while we still get frustrated with the insurance companies, we're a little bit more used to it. And sometimes we have hotlines that are not necessarily available to the general public so that we can get things resolved faster. But uncovering those things through employee surveys is super useful. And then I'll give kind of I'll call it a free tip. I mean, everything's free with me because there's no cost to work with me. But what I have discovered over 20 years of working with all sizes of employers and employees is the most common response to an employee survey is, we want to spend less out of our paycheck for benefits. And I will always recommend that an employer of any size endeavor to offer at least one medical plan where there's no employee contribution. And that can sound scary, and I can model all of that for an employer, but that may mean offering a plan that covers less, but the premium's lower, and that means the employer can afford to cover 100% of the cost. And yes, the employees might have a little bit higher deductible or a little bit higher cost when they go to the doctor, but the fixed cost out of their paycheck, to me, in my observation, is the number one metric that they use to assess the value of their benefits plan. If there's a free plan for them, it feels more valuable than a richer plan where they might have to cover 50% or 40% of the cost. Their perception is that a free plan is better than one that's going to have a payroll deduction. So I always try and guide my employers, and not all of them do that, but I would always encourage an employer to try to offer a plan that for the employees has no payroll deduction, because the perception that the employees will have about the value of their benefits will be higher.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And it might be the same at the end of the day, right? It shakes out the same dollars for dollars, but you're right. The perception is, at the end of the day, that's all that matters, is what does your team feel? How do they feel like you're providing for them, taking care of them, and offering, a benefit package that is robust. And so that's a great tip, Amy. Thank you.
Benefits has a PR component that commercial insurance doesn't have. So while, liability insurance and workers' comp and all the things I talked about on the commercial side are super important for risk management, generally the employees don't interact with that coverage, right? It's there as a protection for the business. But benefits has a huge PR component because employees are interacting with that, and they are assessing the value of that as part of their overall employment. And they should be educated about how the benefits work, and they should feel like they have a resource they can go to if something's not working correctly, and not be frustrated with the whole process. And I'm very aware of that, and I really work with my clients to be sure that we're addressing the PR piece so that employees feel valued and understand the value of what their employer is providing for them.
Yeah, I love that. And I'd love to that's a perfect segue into one of the questions that I wanted to ask. What are some of the often unknown benefits that, or maybe not unknown. I mean, everybody, when you say benefits, right, you automatically think medical. But I know that there's a whole suite of other benefits that sometimes are really low cost or no cost that you could package with your medical. What are some of those that are less, I guess, talked about or known for employers?
Yeah, so kind of working down the ladder, even with medical, there's a couple things I could add to that. People may be familiar with flexible spending accounts, which allow employees to set aside pre-tax dollars so that they can pay for out-of-pocket medical expenses. And then there's a separate FSA for out-of-pocket daycare expenses. So that's something that can be layered on with a medical plan. Health savings accounts, which I am a huge fan of, are a particular pre-tax savings account that has to be paired with a specific type of medical PPO plan. But often we can add that PPO plan to a menu of plans that are being offered to employees. It's not that it's the only plan that you have to offer. And for highly compensated executives, having another vehicle that allows them to set aside pre-tax dollars that they can invest. And there's a triple tax advantage, which I know speaks to your financial approach. So you can set pre-tax dollars aside in a health savings account. You can invest the money within the health savings account, and you're not taxed on the proceeds of the investments. And then as long as you take the money out for qualified medical expenses that you incurred at any point in your life, you can take that money out without paying taxes on it. So it's kind of like a medical retirement plan. And it takes some education, but for highly compensated executives that can afford to put the annual maximum into a health savings account, it can be a wonderful additional tax savings vehicle. And that's a conversation I love to have with my clients. Dental and vision are really kind of the common next two benefits that can be added, and they don't have to be super expensive. Basic life insurance is a super common, super affordable benefit typically it's employer paid, and you can cover your employees for $10,000 or $25,000 of basic life insurance while they're employed with you. It usually costs $2 or $3 per employee per month. And it is perceived as a value add that for the cost is really, really inexpensive. And typically, if you're working with an insurance carrier that does dental and vision and life insurance, they'll add on an employee assistance program at no charge, and an EAP is an additional resource for mental health services. And that's been a huge conversation over the last few years with COVID, bringing mental health issues to the forefront. Medical plans absolutely provide coverage for visits to inpatient or outpatient for mental health visits. But the EAP is kind of like a triage for mental health services, where employees have a 24-hour hotline that they can call to talk to a mental health services provider. They usually get a number of visits at no charge, and they can do them telephonically or in person. And then if they need to be transitioned over to the mental health benefits on their medical plan for more ongoing care, then the EAP will facilitate that. But getting that free EAP is wonderful, and I talk about those in all of my open enrollment meetings. Pet insurance is one that comes up more and more often. So while that's not people insurance, even though it feels like it for those of us that have pets that we love, it is a relatively low cost benefit that sometimes is payroll deducted, sometimes not, but an easy add-on. And then I really like health advocacy benefits. So health advocacy is a service that allows employees to have someone that they can call to help them with difficult medical bills. And if you've ever dealt with complex medical situations, those bills can be terrifying, confusing. They can take a long time to resolve. And having a health advocacy service that can kind of take that work on is great for the employee because it takes a lot of stress off. It's also great for the employer because then the employee's not sitting on the phone trying to get through to insurance carriers, trying to resolve all of that on work time. So I love that benefit as well.
Amy, that's such great information, and, all of the different types of insurance that employers can offer to their team. Some of them, the cost is really beneficial, like from the employer side, to keep the team happy and engaged and feeling like they're getting a lot. And so I had the conversation about, fully loaded employee costs and layering in all of the different types of things. And when you look at the cost benefit, as an employer, for the team to feel like, oh my gosh, I have this huge suite of options that I can, and sign up for. And the employee side of it, We talked about retention, which I know is a huge thing with, being competitive, keeping your team. But I think that it's just such a, we talk to our clients about this all the time, right? Building in, here's where you're at now. As the revenue increases, and Amy, you spoke about this too, what can you layer in that's going to keep making it richer and richer for the team to just, and you bake it in, right? So it's not like, okay, I made an extra, 20,000 over my budget this year. Now where am I going to spend it? No, that's not the way that we're looking at it. We're looking at it as, each level of growth, there's all the front loaded stuff that goes before you hit that, but planning for it and having somebody that can explain, here's all the options. And then the employer can say, okay, I'm going to budget for this, this, and this now. And then when the revenue hits this, and this, and then that way, it just keeps getting better and better. I love it. I love it. Amy, I think this has been such a great conversation. And I think that, there's just so much more that employers should be asking questions and digging into this. And really, if you have somebody that you don't, you talk to once a year when it's open enrollment, maybe you want to find somebody else that you're talking to more frequently so that they really know your business intimately and they become a partner with you as opposed to just a vendor that you talk to once a year, because it's ever changing, number one. Number two, there's probably new options and new, things coming out all the time that you can layer into your benefit package. But it's also important, I think, for me personally as a business owner, working with somebody that knows enough about the commercial side and then also specializes and says, I can bring in this person. Yes, you're going to need that too. Let me bring in somebody from my team. And yes, you're going to need that. Let me bring somebody in from my team. We kind of operate like that too with our CFO role. It's like, oh, you need more of a tax strategist rather than a tax preparer. Let me find somebody to bring them in. Oh, you need insurance. Let me bring in somebody, so you're kind of the quarterback, right? And so having insurance, somebody that's sitting in the role, the insurance role, the broker role in your company that has all the deep bench, I think is just so valuable. And I can't speak enough about that.
Yeah, I think of that role as relationship manager, and I'm blessed to have relationships that have lasted 15 plus years, and from a financial perspective, just as another tip to your clients, there's no cost to work with a great broker. It costs exactly the same to work with a great broker as it does to work with a crummy broker, because you don't pay the broker a fee. Brokers get compensated through commissions from the insurance companies. So if you're working with a lazy broker who's not doing any of this stuff for you, you're paying that person exactly the same as you would be paying us if you were working with us. And I think a lot of people don't realize that either. So I always like to put it out there. Might as well work with a great broker, because it's not going to cost you any more money. It's probably going to save you money, actually, in the long run.
It really is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Long run. So, what a great tip, Amy. Thank you so much for jumping on today and for having this conversation and sharing all this wisdom. I think that our viewers and our listeners I hope they're all taking notes and rewatching this one again, because there's so much good stuff in here for them. And thank you, Amy, for being our guest today.
For sure. Thank you. And it was fun to talk with you and nerd out a little bit on insurance stuff and financial stuff. And I love what you guys do. And I love that there's so much synergy between what you guys do and what we do. And I appreciate the opportunity.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and review, and we'll catch you on the next episode. If you're looking for more content or resources in the meantime, check out our website for information, blogs, and our I've Got a Spreadsheet for That series. That's thecashflowcfo.com. Again, thecashflowcfo.com. We can't wait to hear from you.